Hey, everybody, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Booker to Release podcast. Ray outdid himself this time. Our guest this week has been in broadcast for over 43 years. His career started as a production assistant for ABC News, then moved on to be an associate director and the creative director of CBS News Marketing. After 12 years, he went to NBC News to be their senior vice president creative director of marketing. When he was done with NBC, he went back to CBS News to be their senior vice president of marketing. Side note, I spent 4 months in 1998 working for Jeff when we were both at CBS. After almost 17 years at CBS, our guest would be president and executive producer of Stage and Screen Creative and an instructor at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. He is currently the executive producer of LMAO Productions. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, this guy has 7 Promax BDA awards. He's been inducted into the Promax BDA Hall of Fame, and he has an Emmy. Our guest this week is Mr. Jeff Kreiner. Jeff, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. It's good to see you guys.
It's great to see you too.
Great to see you.
For me, it's probably been, well, since 1998 when I actually worked for you was the last time I actually saw you. So
Wow.
it's been quite a long time. I assume it's been more recent for Ray.
Yeah, I mean,
We have battle stories. Yeah.
we do. We, Jeff, I thank you so much for doing this. As anything, it's our pleasure. It's something that we're doing, and you know what? The first person that came to mind when Chris and I spoke, we have to get Jeff at some point on. We've been following you. I've been following you personally. We know each other. We grew as we were business. It was a business thing, and then it turned out to be a friendship.
Right.
You know, your daughter, still reaches out to me every once in a while. She says, "You're the best boss I ever had." But what about your dad? I always find a place in my heart for your daughter. She's great. She's awesome, and she's married.
Yes. Yes, she's married. She's married
happy.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I follow her. She follows me. She's always telling me about my girls, making me feel old as hell. And your son also is about to get married, right?
Yes.
He got engaged.
Yes. Next year he's going to get married.
Awesome.
Oh, congratulations.
You
That's
and your
awesome.
wife
Thank
must
you.
be happy.
Yeah. Very happy.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm glad you're doing this, and this is just for us to put it out there. This is a book it and
Perfect.
release podcast where it relates to how we cross paths, your path, and what you up to now. And I'm gonna let Chris take it over, and I'm gonna sit back here and just enjoy the stories.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, Jeff, I always like to find out how things started for the people that we spoke with. Now, looking at your bio, it seemed like it was around 1978 where you were going to
76.
ABC. 76.
76.
Sorry about that.
I was 18 years old.
When you went to ABC?
Yes.
That's incredible.
I was 18 years old. I was a desk assistant, which is like a gopher. And I worked on the weekend news. And then I worked on the ABC Evening News with Harry Reasoner before Barbara Walters.
Mhm.
And got along great with him. And I'll tell you a little story. When I was at ABC, I was about 19 years old. I was a big bowler. I was very big into bowling. I was in 5 leagues. I was averaging about 200 in these leagues. And I wanted to go on the tour. Now, I'm a desk assistant, okay, which is like coffee getter, that's like the lowest of the low. And I went to the executive producer of the Evening News at the time, and I said to him, I'd like to take 6-month leave and go on the road and try this out and see if I could do it. And I had Harry Reasoner and 2 other producers were going to back me. They were going to back me with $50,000. They would get 60%. I would get 40% of whatever I win. And so I had it all laid out. I'm like 19. And my executive producer said, we can't guarantee you'll get a job if you come back. And at that point, I chickened out. And I said, all right, fine, I'll stay here. I'm not going to do it. And to this day, I resent that. I regret a little bit that I didn't try it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what would have happened, But I bowled at 299, and I was in all these leagues, and I was bowling for money, and I was out till 3 a.m. at bowling alleys. People were betting on me. I didn't even have to lay out the money. So I did a lot of bowling at that time. But it was at ABC for about 5.5 years. Then went to CBS. They wanted an AD. They were looking for an associate director. So I went there, and I was at CBS till 1989, from 81 to 89. I started when Dan Rather did the evening news. Mm-hmm. In 1989, I went to George Schweitzer, who was president of marketing. And I wanted to work in sports. I had enough with news. And I said, do you know anyone in sports? And he said, no, not really. And I'm like, how do you not know anyone in sports? You're the president of marketing. But he said, how would you like to do advertising and promotion? I had zero background. I did not go to college. I don't have a marketing background at all. And I said, great, I'll do it. So I started to work with Joe Pastorella. And eventually I got that job. And I was head of marketing for all of CBS News. NBC came calling. They were looking for someone like me. So I went over to NBC, and I was in charge of everything on the East Coast promotion. So it was Saturday Night Live, NBC News, NBC Sports, Thanksgiving Day Parade, anything that was on the East Coast, my department did the promos for it.
That's huge.
And we would produce about 10,000 promos a year.
Oh my God.
So I did 3 years. I also launched a network. I mean, I can go on and on. There's so much stuff I've done. I launched a network in Europe, NBC Super Channel, which was seen in 60 countries. And that was the best job I had, bar none.
How come?
Because I traveled all through Europe on NBC's dime. And I was doing beauty shots and bumpers and promos in, Berlin, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Belgium, Amsterdam, Zurich, Switzerland. I was all over the place.
Wow. And
I traveled with a crew, the same crew. And the crew said to me, this is the best job we ever had by far, because I ate in good restaurants. We treated well, we stayed in good hotels. Yeah. And that was like a dream job.
How long did that last for?
I did that. I was 3 years at NBC. I did promos for the Today Show while I was in Europe, because Today Show was going to air on NBC Super Channel. And it was the first time it was in Europe. So one funny story is I don't know if you're familiar with the Vatican. What's at the Vatican, how it's set up. It's a circle, it's a street. Mm-hmm. Well, in Italy, I didn't know this. If you have a camera on your shoulder and you're taking pictures, you're fine. You don't need a permit. But once you have a tripod, that's a permit. And they will put you in jail if you don't have a permit. I didn't know any of this. So just picture this. I have about 50 priests standing in front of the Vatican in the middle of the street. They're talking about the Today Show, how happy they are to watch the Today Show. I have the camera crew setting up. I'm in the middle of the street. The police come and they speak Italian. I don't speak Italian. And I have like NBC News pins. So I figured I'll give them a pin and they'll go away. They don't know from what NBC is anyway. So I had an interpreter, and I told the interpreter, talk to the cops here while I do this. Meanwhile, the camera guy says, what should I do? I said, you know what to do. Shoot while I talk to the police. So he's doing the shoot, right? And the cop says something in Italian, and the interpreter comes to me and says, don't worry, you'll get out in a day. And I'm like, what?
Get out of what?
You're going to jail. That's what your job is. I'm not going to jail. So we finally calmed him down. I didn't know you needed a tripod. You need a license with a tripod.
Yeah.
So that went away. We got the shot. By the time we were arguing and all that, the camera guy got everything done. Nice. But a lot of those little stories through Germany and Belgium and all this stuff, it was fabulous. Ray, you'll like this. Ray, when I was working in London in the bureau, at the NBC bureau, the food in London, to me, is horrible. Just horrible food. So I had the Carnegie Deli put bologna sandwiches in a FedEx box with dry ice. God. And just imagine this. So the FedEx box comes in the office, and I open it up. People are looking at me like, what did you get? and I'm opening it up and I pull out a sandwich and I start eating it. And they look at me like, are you kidding me? They never saw anything like this, but that's what I had to do.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me, Jeff.
It makes sense to me too, because
right?
I
I had to eat, and that was the only way I could eat.
It makes sense now.
Yeah. So that was NBC. Then CBS called. They had replaced me when I went to NBC. Well, they weren't happy with who they replaced with. I won't name names. So they said, would you come back? So I came back as a senior vice president of marketing at CBS. So I launched all of the promos for, all the campaigns, Experience, CBS News, the ones that I think are better than what's on now. But I did all of the promos. We do, like I said, about 10,000 promos a year. I did promos in the Super Bowl. I could tell you one funny promo story. You got a second?
We got all the
Sure
time.
do.
Okay, good. So here I am. I'm an AD, associate director on the Evening News with Dan Rather. And the promos really were bad. It was being produced in LA for news, which made no sense. Van Sorter was the president of CBS News. And I put together a promo that I thought was good. And I left it on my desk. I didn't know what to do with it. And it wasn't my job to do promos at the time. I was an associate director on the Evening News. And I saw Van Sorter walking down the hallway. This is a big guy, bigger than me, with a beard. You didn't know if he's happy, sad, nothing. You couldn't tell. You just saw lips, right? So I see him walking towards me, and I stopped him in the hallway. This took a lot of balls, I have to tell you. I don't know how I did that. And I said, hi, Van, I'm Jeff Kreiner. I'm an AD on Evening News. And he said, yeah, he had his glasses down like this. Yeah. I said, look, I put together a promo and I wanted to show it to you because I think it's really good. And he said, okay, fine. He turned around, walked to his office, he said, meet me in my office. So I go back to my office, I get the tape. And I said to myself, this was either the dumbest thing I've ever done or the smartest. I have no idea. So I go to his office, which I had never been in before. And we put the tape in and we play it and it plays. And he said, you can't see a face. You have no idea if he's happy, not. And I don't even know if he likes the promos that are on the air now, right? So he said, who asked you to do this? I said, nobody. I said, I did it because I on the show and I thought it'd be good. And his quote was, it's about time someone in this place did something without being asked. He says, do me a favor. Wait, the story gets better. Do me a favor. Put together like 4 or 5 of those promos. Don't tell anyone that I told you to do it. Okay, fine. So now I leave. Now I don't know what I'm doing, but I did 4 or 5 of them. I sent it to him. We'll make a long story short. One of them aired in the Super Bowl that I did. They liked it so much. And they wanted me to go to promos right away, but Rather and the Evening News didn't want me off the show. So I was delayed going to promos for about a year until eventually I went on there. So I was destined to do promos, but I had no background, no experience in it. I just had a good eye for graphics and a good ear for music and kept it simple, kept the word simple, which is important in promotion because you only have 10 seconds. And right. 3 of those seconds is the name of the show. So you really have 7 seconds to tell me what I need to know. Right. So that's an art, it's not easy to do. And then I did that with CBS. And then I left CBS and I have 3 pensions with CBS. I have a Directors Guild pension as well. So I have 4 pensions. And now I don't have to work. I do it because I love to do it. One of the great things I did was I did CBS Eye on American, which was the in-flight program on American Airlines. 1,200 planes a day.
Yep.
And one of the great things was it was around 9/11. And a lot of people didn't like to fly because they were afraid to fly.
Correct.
And I had to come up with promo with it was a 90-minute show with elements that were easy to watch, would take my mind off flying because people were really scared to do it. So I did Las Vegas. I said, let's do On Location Las Vegas. So every month when I went out to West Coast to record Eye on American, I would do a stop in Vegas and I would shoot. I've shot everyone from comedians to magicians, and I have stories with all of them, from Barry Manilow to Neil Sedaka, who showed up at the shoot and said, you mind if I wear my hat because I left my hair in my room.
Oh my!
I'm
Oh
like,
my
"Sure, I
gosh!
don't care." I did Manilow. Wayne Newton. Wayne Newton was great. Wayne Newton's a terrific guy. Did it in his dressing room, and he comes out in a beautiful robe after the show, and he's got this watch that's all diamonds. The front of it's all diamonds. So I said to him, "How do you read the time on that watch?" And he said, "Son, it's not meant to read the time." And I felt like 2 cents, like such a jerk. So I mean, those kind of stories, like Gladys Knight. It was 8:00. Her show starts at 8. I had to stop the interview, and she says, "Honey, don't worry. They'll wait. I like the interview. It's going well."
Oh
So
my
we did
God!
another 10 minutes. And Gladys, her big song was "Midnight Train to Georgia."
Mm-hmm.
Her manager said, "You cannot shoot her singing that song. She does not like that anyone else to shoot it." Because I used to shoot B-roll of the show, right? So I'd have B-roll when I did the interview. I said, "But I got it. This piece doesn't make sense without Midnight Train. That's her big song." He said, "Well, you can't do that." I said, "Okay." So the interview ends, and she said, "Is there anything else you need?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I really would like to shoot you singing Midnight Train to Georgia, because that would make the piece." She says, "Honey, do whatever you want." And her manager is looking at me. If looks could kill, I'd be dead.
Yep.
Yeah. And I shot it. We did a thing with Peter Fish, the late Peter Fish, with Tony Bennett. This is my favorite story.
Yep.
Tony Bennett, his big song is "I Left My Heart in San Francisco," right? Okay.
Yep.
So we were doing a shoot that day at a studio outside of CBS for an affiliate tape that I was doing. And I wanted him to say, "I left my heart with CBS News," to change the words.
Uh-oh.
His son is his manager. And his son said to me, "Mr. Bennett does not change the words to that song for anybody." Okay, fine. That's the challenge, you see.
Yeah, challenge accepted, right?
Challenge accepted. I have no problem with that.
Yep.
So I found out he eats at Patsy's restaurant, big Italian restaurant in Manhattan. I called up Patsy's restaurant. I spoke to the owner there, and I said, "Look, I'm doing a shoot with Mr. Bennett." "Oh, Tony Bennett. Well, we love him. He's our favorite, whatever." I said, "Good. Now that you said that, I'd like you to cater his favorite dish for lunch at the shoot." "Okay, no problem. We'll do that. We'll take care of it." And he got for other people too, but he had a certain dish. I don't know what it was, some chicken dish or something. The chef came to the shoot and gave him the food. And Tony was like, he was like, "Thank you so much. That was very kind of you, very thoughtful of you." I said, "Okay, so now I have a favor.
Oh boy.
I would like you to change the words to 'I left my heart at CBS News.'" And he looked at me, he said, "I don't normally do that, but you were so thoughtful with my food and all that, I'll do it." And of course, his son also looked at me, wanted to kill me.
Wait, I got to ask though. So again, another gamble that you took. How confident were you in that, all that planning and catering, and that was actually going to work?
You know what? I don't think about it. I just do it.
Yeah.
If you spend too much time thinking about it, you're not going to do it. Or
you just knew it was a good idea.
Yeah, for every good idea, there's a bad reason, and you can't second guess yourself. You got to take a chance, And so that was a very big deal. So I have a lot of these kind of stories, especially with Vegas, with shooting all of these stars between George Wallace and David Brenner.
Isn't that where affiliates used to be every year, Memorial Weekend?
I used to produce the CBS News. I did it for NBC too. It was a 1-hour thing where news had a 1 hour to impress the general managers of all the stations, the affiliates. So we would do these killer tapes.
Yep.
That was just all about CBS News or NBC News. And I'd have them crying. In a couple of Ray knows, a couple of those pieces they really grab you. And I used to love doing them. Yeah.
So Chris, when Jeff, so obviously our busiest time was Memorial Weekend.
Right.
Memorial Weekend, we were all on call.
Right.
So when I started with Peter, obviously after you left and whatever, and I began to meet Jeff and began to know the whole relationship stuff, obviously I wasn't polished. So the first Memorial Weekend, I work at National, and Peter goes, well, Lisa McKenna and Jennifer Fish come up to me and go, Ray, for some reason, people like you because Mary Felder liked me, Jay Pednoff liked me, or whatever it was. They go, but just so you know, you need to be on call Memorial Weekend in case we have to put you on a flight with tapes to go to Vegas, to go whatever. My first year, my reaction was, I ain't going to no fucking Vegas. I got parties going on all weekend. That was my introduction to the whole affiliates thing. And then that lasted for the next, 9 years, 10 years after that?
Yeah. I have a working relationship with a director, John Bering, who's a genius. And when I had to do big shoots like Katie Couric, I had to shoot Katie Couric promos when she wasn't even at CBS. She was coming to CBS.
Right.
But they wanted promos on the air. So I had to sneak her out of NBC and send her to a studio and shoot her on a set to make it look like her office.
Right.
She didn't have an office. She wasn't even at CBS yet. So we had to do that shoot. So I have a director, John Bering, who based in LA. I would call him. I would tell my assistant, please call John, tell him to get on a plane and get here. I need you now. And John wouldn't even ask, what do you need me to do? He knew if I was calling him and telling him to come, he got on a plane and he came. And there was never a question like, well, what do you want me to do? Don't worry about what you need to do. You need to get here. That's how fast. And that's what your job is. One of the toughest thing about doing promos is you can't just do today's stuff. You have to think tomorrow. You have to think way ahead of stuff that hasn't even happened yet. And that's very difficult. And not a lot of people can do that. I had a department that was able to think ahead and always plan ahead, because that's what promos are, always promoting the next day, the next night, the next broadcast. So you have got to stay on top of those things. And I had a very good staff that I didn't even have to say anything. They knew what they had to do.
Yeah, you did.
And yeah.
You did. You did. You had great producers that worked for you. I met them all. They were all, again, I think my first misconception of Jeff was he's this big guy, CBS, and not big guy instead. It was just his name. It was like, when Jeff walks in here, make sure it's this, and that. My first introduction to Jeff was Carnegie Deli, his Diet Coke, and Ray. And it was like, the warning was always to me at this point, because obviously I was rough. But Jeff and I hit it off from the moment I walked into the room. He goes, hey, this is a new guy. Peter goes, yeah, he's, whatever. He's a Yankee fan. Jeff goes,
you're good.
You're good. Not knowing me. That was all. It was all that. But I think my relationship built more with Mary Felder, Jay Penhoff, because I spoke to them more, because Jeff was busy. He was not like, the only time he would call, if he couldn't find Peter or Jen, it would be find me Ray. I just, one of those three, nobody else, or Lisa McKenna, because it was us four.
Right.
It was us four. So that
you guys did miracles. You did miracles. One of my favorite Peter Fish stories, and he always used to tell other people this story, was when I went to NBC, I had to do promos, special promos, and he sent me the tape. It was sent over, and I'm listening to it, and I said, the music sounds too familiar. Let me listen again. I listened again, and it was the CBS theme.
Don't do it.
And I called him up. I said, Peter, do you realize that you put CBS music on the NBC promo?
one?
Uh-oh.
And he's like, oh my God. So he came, when he came to deliver it, he delivered it himself.
Yes, he did.
On his hands and knees, pushing the tape with his face on the floor. That's
Listen.
I'll never forget that.
You don't forget it because you don't know the shit I gave Peter Fish for that.
Oh my God.
You know why, Chris? Because Peter was so, how we spoke of him and that he would be off the top every once in a while, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
So obviously I was lucky enough to build that relationship where there was very little people that could talk Peter off of a ledge. So one of the PAs goes to Peter and goes, we need to QC this before it goes. Peter goes, fuck that. It has to get to Jeff. It has to get right away. I don't care what anybody says. So obviously he comes to the office. Ray, he says that. I was like, no, QC it in the goddamn room. We don't want to mess this up. I get the phone call. Ray,
boy.
Someone fucked up. Someone sent the wrong music. I'm like, It was you.
Right.
I told you not to do it.
Peter was a genius. He really was a genius. I can't tell you how many times I went to him and said, "Look, I don't know what to do with this video.
You guys
I
played
know,
well off of
do
each
your
other.
magic." And he did. And he did. And I could tell you, many people called me. They wanted to do work. They were dying to do music for CBS or NBC. And I said no to all of them. I only worked with Peter.
It was the,
I was very loyal to him.
what I loved about that relationship, that it was just much more than just the work.
Right.
Because you guys would have side conversations.
It
You
was
guys would talk.
trust. It was trust.
It was a lot of trust.
Right.
And I learned a lot from that trust.
Right.
How did you guys originally come together?
Well, Joe used him. Joe Passarella used him. And then when I took over, I used him. And I just found that him and I were on the same wavelengths. We liked strings when we needed them. We knew what kind of music. He knew what I liked. I knew what he would do. And we just, we clicked. And I didn't want to go to someone else because, you know, he knew what he was doing. He really knew what he was doing. And I know he would work extra hours to do it. And it was never, well, it's 9:30, I have to go home. That never happened.
No,
never.
It certainly didn't.
Nor did it happen with me. I mean,
no, it never
worked the hours I did.
Right. It never did. Right. It never did. Now, I mean, again, when Jeff called, everybody stopped, you know, but it just wasn't because he was Jeff. It's also because of that trust and because he knew he was dependent on to bring something, knowing that it was going to be much bigger than what it was, whether if it was 10 seconds, 7 seconds, or, you know, whatever the approach was. Because for affiliates, it was all hands on deck. Because how many tapes was it? 13 tapes?
Yeah. We spent over $500,000.
13 tapes.
And mind you, at least
it was 13 tapes that I remember. And then we had to do like at least 2 backups of certain things in case something was going wrong.
Right.
So Jeff always had the you know.
I must have done 20 of them, these affiliate meetings.
Yeah, no.
And they let me never even told me what to do. In fact, I would do all the tapes, the 10 or 12. I hired freelance producers to do them. And I would look at them, and you know, when I was happy with it, that's when I would show it to the president. And the president of the news division would come to my office, and I would play it in my office because I didn't want any distractions.
Right.
I turned the other TVs off. It was just one TV where he could focus in and watch it. And they had no idea. You know, it was pretty close because I was doing it with, you know, 3 days left, and I took chances because if they didn't like it, I'd be up Schitt's Creek. But they loved him. And I had them in tears. A lot of the GMs would come up to me afterwards in Vegas, you know, in the big ballroom when we ran these things. Even Moonves would come up to me and he said, "You had me in tears." Yeah.
Wow.
So, they
were great.
He was interesting. I got along very well with him.
Do you have any less stories?
Yeah, less stories. Yeah, I can't repeat those. I can't repeat those. Some of those have to stay with me.
Understood.
Let me ask you this. So you're at CBS. Obviously, I know you for a bunch of those years because obviously I started the same way with Peter. I didn't go to school for none of this. I came straight out of, it was years after, but I didn't go to school because I hated school. But I also had a knack for making a presence, you know, showing up, being nice, being who I was. I wasn't fake to anyone. Everybody knew I wasn't the normal guys that they would hire at National at the time.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But it was incredible to see the way you worked.
Well, you know, I'll tell you the interesting thing is I never looked at resumes. I didn't look at tapes either because I never know if it's their video, if they just didn't, if they were on budget, if they were told how to do the video. You don't know that. The resumes, if I see that you've done a lot of different places, I wouldn't hire you unless you were freelance. Then I know you only get 3 months to do here, there. But if you can't hold a job for more than a year, I don't need you. Right. I would hire someone with conversations. I hired a guy, he's still there at CBS, who painted bridges. That was his job. He had nothing with television. He painted bridges, but he answered the questions the right way. He seemed like he really wanted the job, and I gave it to him. And he's a big editor now, but he painted bridges. And
That's
so I
amazing.
never looked at his resume. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that because some people are very good at resumes and some people are not that good at resumes, but they're good producers.
Listen,
So you have to know, you have to talk to them, and you have
Chris
to
and I,
have a conversation.
listening to you say that, I bet Chris and I both are going, fuck, we wish people were like that now.
Yeah,
Because if
they're
you
not.
were to hear the stories that Chris has gone through for a couple of networks, and the shit they put him through and
Right.
whatever, it's even me. I look with my background in the operations of post production or whatever, but Chris has a bigger resume than might be of producing and doing the radio stuff. It's amazing how they do it now.
Yeah,
It is.
It is.
Would
But
you?
I go by what Wayne Newton said to me. I asked him who his biggest influence was, and he said it's his mother. His mother told him, find something you love to do, and you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm like, that's genius. I went home, I told my kids that, I told everyone that, and I found something I love to do. And I don't regret a second of it. I had ups and downs. I've had contracts. I had contracts with CBS and NBC for 35 years, and they were 3-year deals. So that meant every 3 years I was up, which they could have said, have a nice day, go. And they could have let me go, and you're not getting fired. They're just not renewing your contract. So I had that always in my head. Every 3 years I had a contract for 35 years. I had an agent, the same agent as Dan Rather and, Richard Liebner, who's big in the business. And that helped a lot because he was good. And it was a lot of fun. I found it to be challenging, and I loved the challenge each day. Every day was different. It's still in my blood. I watch the news now all the time. I still catch flash frames.
Does it drive you? Does it drive you crazy what you see now?
Yes.
Like, do you have to turn it off? Do you be like, who the fuck approved that?
Yeah, at times I do. At times I do. I think the lower thirds are too much. What the correspondents say, they say, we appreciate you coming on. That's your job. This original reporting logo is stupid.
Right.
Is it based on what, as opposed to what? Original reporting. You mean you didn't do original reporting before? Isn't that your job?
Right.
So to me, it's stupid.
Right.
Expect more was another slogan. You got to pay attention to these slogans. It just doesn't make sense.
I catch myself. I trust me when I catch myself, Jeff, because as I gone on, obviously, like I said, I learned a lot by listening and watching what everyone did. Right. One of my favorite producers was always Gene Sadie.
Mean Gene.
Yep. Always loved Gene Sadie.
Yes.
Always loved how she did stuff. Obviously Sarah Callahan was always great.
Right.
She was ruthless. She was always determined. A lot of political clients that she had, a lot of freelance, but she always came with her guns blazing. Right. And I saw that, but when I look at these promos now, I tell you what, I cringe.
Yeah.
I cringe, and I'm like, what the hell?
It's not as easy as people think it is.
No.
You don't want it to give away the story, which a lot of times they do.
I think they give away too much.
The story, why watch the show?
Why watch? You're giving me everything on a 7-second clip.
Right. And the show opens with his 10 stories, would tell you this, would tell you that. Most people don't remember the first 2 stories you even told, first 5 stories. So it's very different now. It's very different. It's not good.
So now with CBS all done, you moved on. Now you're doing this LMAO.
Yeah.
Right? Is that correct?
So this is crazy. Here's the crazy part.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to sit and look at 4 walls here. I didn't have to work, like I said. But that doesn't mean anything to me. I want to work. I do want to work. So I had this idea of doing a comedy show. And I shot it in LA. The pilot I shot with, I was friendly with Buddy Hackett. Mm-hmm. Well, I got friendly with his son, Sandy Hackett. So he hosted the show, the pilot. I did it at the Improv in LA. And it came out really good. And it's like, okay, now what do I do? So I traveled around the country, did a couple in state of Washington. I have a host, Skip Clark, who's a comedian based in LA. It's a very funny guy, nice guy. And I've shot a lot in Florida at the Improv and different places, Hilton Head, Tampa, Port Charlotte, different places like that. I've done 30 shows, 30 half-hour shows are done. It airs now on JLTV, which is Jewish Life TV. Now, it doesn't belong on JLTV, but the reason why it's on JLTV is because the president of JLTV is in on a very big project. I can't say yet what it is,
Right.
but if that hits, I'm going to get LMAO on that network, and that's a big one.
Awesome.
So sometimes you have to take 2 steps back to go 2 steps forward.
Right.
They told me 5,000 to 7,000 people watch LMAO it's on Monday night at 10:30 on JLTV. Well, so now that I was doing that and I was airing the shows on a couple of internet, it's called OTA, over the top, or OTT platforms, which is internet platforms where people can stream, because people don't watch TV like they used to anymore. So make a long story short here, this company called Flix likes the idea of the show. Well, they are teaming up with NASCAR next year. They want me to travel with them to all these, and also doing John Schneider, which is Dukes of Hazzard.
Sure.
He has a dirt, but he does things with cars spinning and flying and doing all that. So that'll be on there also. So I'm going to follow the NASCAR and John Schneider tour all next year, from February to March of 2023. I have a deal with this company till March of 2023, producing LMAO shows on their website, and it's great. They're picking up the camera person and the editing, so I just show up. So it's very exciting. We're gonna get an RV and travel with my wife all through the country. We have 28,000 miles, so it's the equivalent of going around the world.
That's
in a year. So
and out of left field, just
totally out of left field, and it's only because I stuck with it and had faith that it was going to work. I love the name LMAO because I don't have to explain what it is. People know what that means. And that's a good thing. And it's LMAO, Making America Laugh Again, is the slogan.
Right.
Even though I'm not that fan of that person that did that.
Right. They're thrilled.
Half the country is.
Right.
And it's it's not political, because it's Make America Laugh Again.
Of course.
Right.
I've shot at many clubs. I've shot at many comedians. I've been in touch with them. It's a whole nother side. It has nothing to do with what I was doing before, other than being able to produce stuff. So I don't know where else it's going to go, but if it gets hit on a big network, that'll be great. But it's keeping me busy, which is nice.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, right? You're out of your wife's hair. You're not in her way.
Right.
You're not driving her crazy.
That's right.
Now,
have you ever driven an RV before?
RV. What's that?
Have you ever driven an RV before?
Yes.
Okay.
We used to do it. We love it. I mean, I love it.
So let me ask you this: are you going to have a driver now? Or...
No, me. Hello, you're looking at him.
Oh, no. Listen, I don't even want to drive to the city anymore.
I'm the driver. Look, I was shooting these shows too. I have an HD camera, so I was shooting the shows as well.
Right.
That I have. I've got 30 shows done already.
That's great.
And if you go to LMAOamerica.com, you'll see more of what I've done.
So
that's a website.
So you managed to do this, and during COVID?
Yeah. Well, I was the last one to shoot at Dangerfields before they closed.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was the last shoot at Dangerfields. And then I couldn't shoot a lot of COVID. During the COVID, I couldn't shoot.
Of course.
So I did a lot before that because the clubs were closed. They wouldn't open. But they're opening up now. And certain parts of Florida, it's COVID what?
Yeah, right.
It's like,
you know
it doesn't
what?
exist.
I forget the part of the world. Down south, right. I say anything past South Jersey, it's a whole different world.
Right. You go to Jacksonville, you go to the Panhandle of Florida, forget it.
It's
Panama
like
City, they don't know what COVID. There's no COVID.
Exactly.
So no one wears a mask. It's crazy,
So how has aside from the obvious, obviously with COVID, because Chris and I, one of our biggest thing is the world is coming back.
Yeah.
Right? For some more, for some not.
Right.
We personally feel, and I'm not going to speak for Chris because Chris is there, but I know what it's done for me because it hit close to home because my wife got it when nobody
Most
knew.
people know someone that got it. Yeah.
Right. So it hit close to home because my wife got it when no one knew what the hell was going on.
Right.
It changed my perspective a lot. And, it changed. It just changed again, as I say it.
Right.
Like, can I go back to a job and work 15-hour days?
Right.
Can I not be home because of work? Can I not? Now, everybody going back, how many people are changing their minds how to approach life? How to approach this life right now.
I feel bad for the young people today that have to grow up with this crap. We didn't grow up with this stuff, with putting masks on and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's, I have a 20-year-old, she got her first year of college ripped away from her once she was getting started.
Wow. You have a 20-year-old. Holy cow.
Yeah, man. It goes to show you've known me since before I had kids.
I know. Wow. That's crazy.
It's so we always ask is like, what did COVID do for you? Even though you're in a part of the world where you go, COVID's what?
Right.
But it has to be concerning. Like, you found something else to do. What else did it do for you?
I had to.
Yeah.
I made that as a goal. It was like, it's not acceptable to not do something.
Right.
So I had to come up with something. And it's, I edit now. I never edited before. I love it now. It's great. I don't have to work with someone. I could do it myself.
What do you edit on?
Yeah, I edit a Final Cut Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine. I tried the Adobe one. I can't do that. Too involved. Final Cut's much easier for me.
Yeah.
So I love doing that. I love doing the graphics stuff. I have a couple of programs that I got into so I can do graphics. And, I keep in touch with a lot of the people from work. From CBS. Right. I just had lunch with Mary Felder the other day. She's down here in Florida.
Yeah, I heard she moved. She finally left Connecticut.
Yeah.
She finally left.
I keep in touch with them.
No, listen. You had a good crew of people.
Yes.
Where they were like family.
You can't do it if you don't have a good crew. You can't do it yourself.
Yeah, you can't.
No.
You can't. Look, Mary Felder is one person that I remember when she was in Alaska.
Yeah.
Remember when you hit this? She was in Alaska.
Yes, I remember that.
My daughter was born premature.
Right.
From Alaska, she sent gifts to Kayla, before when she was born, and to my wife.
Wow.
But I always say that was an extension of Jeff. What Jeff presented at CBS, at that office, Dana.
You remember our parties, Ray?
Yeah, I grew up with you guys.
My favorite office party was the one that we had at CBS where we took a gambling cruise out into the ocean, gambled, and then came back the next morning, and we all went right back to the office. You
with me, a gambling cruise.
Yeah,
I know we did Highlight. We did one with Highlight.
No, it was like 1998, and I remember it was one of my last days there, and the entire department. Yeah, we got on this cruise ship.
We used to do great parties. We did great parties.
The Intrepid was another one.
Yes,
the Christmas party on the Intrepid. That was an incredible party.
I would tell people we're getting on a bus, and I wouldn't tell them where we're going. And I was like, "Where are we going?" We went to Highlight. We went to Highlight, and I gave everyone. I gave everyone $15. So they can bet, even if they don't bet, they got free money.
What was the castle one? There was a castle one.
Yes, 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 in Long Island.
In Long Island, I remember that.
Nice. That was nice.
That was really
not
nice.
Cheap either.
Yep,
that was not cheap.
So to go down that road today, like right now,
it doesn't happen.
How much you think this would change, even if you were at that helm?
There would not be a party. That's for sure.
Has it changed that much?
Oh yeah. If they haven't fired you by now, they wouldn't have a party. That's for sure. I was always under budget, which is very important.
Right.
And don't be too far under budget, because that doesn't impress them. All that feels is that they gave you too much money.
Right.
And you won't get it next year.
You under budget, but I was under budget by $1,000. And when you're dealing with $8 or $10 million, and you're only $1,000 under, that's good. That's pretty close. And we used to sweat that out near the end of the year. Never over budget. Don't do that. but don't be under budget by $1 million because that's going to be gone for next year. You won't get that in your budget.
Yeah.
They'll take it from you.
So right
you
now,
have to
because
play that.
we spoke to Joe, and he told us the same thing, and my question was, with everything that's gone on in this world and how things are different and how crazy, topsy-turvy and all that stuff, are you happy?
Absolutely.
Oh,
no question. I wouldn't do anything differently. I think this thing is going to hit, and if it hits, it's a whole year of experiences of being on the road and going to these clubs and doing these comedy clubs. Some of the comedians are horrible. Some of them are good. Some of them are very good. And I don't know it until we actually are there shooting it, because I can't look at their reel, because their reel is old. And how do I know if they're going to do the same shtick when they do it on camera?
Right.
I just try to tell them to be TV friendly with language, and I edit it out if I have to. I don't want to, but if they say the magic words, I have to edit it out. Especially if it's on JLTV. Right. So I have to be careful with that. Right. I have a deal with them until 2023. They have 22 shows of mine, and they're going to run it until the magnetic part falls off the tape. They're just going to keep running reruns all the time.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, but let's be clear. Is it really tape anymore?
Well, I don't know what they put it on. It may not be. It may just be a server or something.
So you still record it on tape, not on digital?
Yeah, I record on a hard drive. My camera doesn't have tape. It's a
It's a hard drive. It's digital. So
right. That's right.
Yeah. So wow, that's amazing.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So we always have this thing. Chris and I always go along, and you spoke about Peter. Peter was important to me because Peter changed what I say in my life, because I allowed it. I welcomed it. He showed me a different view. Chris has stories, because if he wasn't at National, he wouldn't have showed up at CBS.
Right. And so I was traveling, so I couldn't go to his
listen, it was what his fiance did was great. She brought him back to, she came back to New York to pay his respect for the people that couldn't. A lot of people showed up. It was beautiful at Prospect Park today.
Good.
I saw a lot of people that I haven't seen in years, because, after being at Tonic, I walked away, because it was tough. Peter went back to Howie's. He had that change of life. He did all that stuff. He had a couple of bumps across the road. But I got to tell you, you left such an impression in me because you treated me as a person. Like the way you approached Tony Bennett and you approached Gladys Knight.
Right.
That's how I approached you. People used to tell me, "Oh, you can't ask Jeff that. You can't do Jeff," And when you and I always spoke was the first thing out of Chris. Every time he would call the office, he goes, "Ray, the fucking Yankees are killing me."
I could say that now.
Yeah, and people would be amazed in the office. They'd be like, "But why is he having a conversation with Ray?" And all of us are being told, I said, I don't know him, and I took that gamble as well.
Right.
I just treated Jeff like Jeff was a person, not that he was Jeff Kreiner, the head of marketing and promotions for CBS.
No, you don't need to do that.
And that's one thing I never did. I never kissed anyone's ass, and I think that's one of the things that people were surprised that I did without having to worry about it.
Right.
But I got to tell you, you left an impression in me that's how I learned how to manage people as well. Growing a good crew, having a good crew. And is now today, look, I'm not in the business per se, even though we've been trying to get back. I've been trying to get back. Chris has been, trying. That's why we decided to do this.
Right.
I still put some of those values where it's people. I don't look at people's resumes. I want to have a conversation with you.
Right.
And if you're genuine, it's going to come across.
Right.
I think that's important.
No, I think so too.
But you had a part in that because you were my exposure for the time that I was with Peter from day one. And
you were very reliable, and you had there was a great team with the Fishes.
Well,
and I enjoyed working with them, and it was very easy to deal with and talk to, and it was never, we'll do it tomorrow, we'll do it now. That's how I like to work.
Yeah.
And I was very happy with you guys. You guys were great.
Well, I'll tell you this, my man. whatever we could do to be part of your next journey, I think Chris and I are able and well.
Yeah.
I know for myself. You got a
Well,
place.
tell me what you're doing. Tell me what you guys are doing. What is you doing?
So right now, for me personally, right now, I still freelance from time to time. My last freelance gig was with Netflix as a post supervisor.
Right.
You know, it's been tough since COVID hit because it reevaluated a lot of stuff. So now I've been pickier of what I'm applying for. I just don't want to apply. I want to know that I'm going to go to a good place. I want to be a place where I have a say, where I could grow the culture, where I could change the dynamic, knowing that these kids now are a little bit different than when I was a kid.
Right.
You know, and learning that I could still adapt to anything. So, you know, I'm doing this right now with Chris. You know, I'll let Chris tell you what he's doing, but he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I was a producer at BBDO for 14 years, and then COVID hit. And then I was fortunate enough to land a freelance gig where I've just been doing video editing for a kosher food company in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I've been doing that for about a year and a half now. But yeah, just always out there looking at this point.
Well, you know, I think the trick is not to give up, is to have a goal, to really figure out what do you want to do, find something you love to do, and stick to it, and try to do it in a way that others aren't doing it, if it's possible. That's what sets you apart, you know. And I think being positive about stuff and taking a chance. I took a chance. It wasn't a major chance because, I mean, it was a no-brainer to me. But it was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to own something. I wanted it to come from me. You know, I found out the right people to talk to. And it takes time, it takes patience. But you guys could do it. You know, you can do it. You just have to be positive about it. You have to be positive about it.
I would say, you know, one thing that I would take away from this conversation is that, you know, through your whole career, it seems like you've always taken chances. You've always bet on yourself. And I would say more times than not, it paid off, you know. And that's inspiring. It really is to hear your story.
I've been lucky. Even as a desk assistant, which is like the lowest of the low, like I said, I used to collect stories that were running on the wires overnight. And I would run like a library of stories, and I'd have it in a file cabinet, and I would send it to the correspondents. Like, have you seen this story? Have you seen that story? You know, nobody was doing that. And that's how you get noticed. So you try to come up with ways that you can be different, yet, you know, still do your job, but be different. Be different and be sure of it. And you can do it. You can do it. I mean, I'm living proof you could do it.
Yeah.
I loved everything I did. The Vegas stuff was great. I'm sitting in a room with Paul Anka, okay, like 2 feet from me. And I'm like, how do I even get this kind of job? And I'm sitting there 2 feet, and he's talking about Frank Sinatra, Elvis, his friend Elvis. And I'm like, holy shit, I don't even belong in this room. And he had friends of his in the room with him. It was in his dressing room after the show. And the friend said, do you mind if we sit in on the interview? And I would do the interview. I was off camera, but I did the interview.
Yeah.
And I said, no, not at all. So they sat on the side. And, you know, Paul Anka wrote My Way for Sinatra. And I said, how do you come up with words like that? And he said, Frank came to him, Frank, not Sinatra, Mr. Sinatra, Frank. Frank came to him and said, I'm retiring. You guys, how come you don't write a song for me? And so Paul said, okay, I'll do something. So he goes back to the hotel, and this is his words. He says, he sat down at the typewriter, and he says, and now the end is near. I face the final. I'm like, where do you come up with these words? Goodness. I mean, it fascinates me. And he just said, it just comes to him. He wrote the song in about 10 minutes. I'm like, are you serious?
That's ridiculous.
This is the same guy that wrote, you know, this theme for Tonight Show. So you can imagine what kind of money this guy made. You know, da, 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 da. He wrote that. And he goes on, and he talks about his life and everything. And after the interview, his friends came up to me and he said, you know, we know Paul for 40 years. He said, we heard things that we never knew about him. This interview, it was really good. And that was a home run to me, you know, So I always tried to, I would go to their fan pages. I would go to different places to try to get questions that they don't normally get asked, because these guys are interviewed all the time.
Right.
And, you want to try to find something that's personal,
Unique.
but
Right.
not, not too personal. But, you get those kind of reactions and they become friendly to you. Copperfield was the same way. I had all these lights set up in he had a duplex room in a hotel, marble. It was insane. So I'm set up with lights and everything. He said, he comes walking out. He says, "Oh, take all those lights down. We don't need all those lights. We're going to do a round light, do one light." I'm like, "Really?" "Yeah, one light will do." "Okay." And he said, "I had lunch with Les yesterday and told him I was doing this." This is how he starts this, right?
Oh my God.
He had lunch with Les yesterday. I'm like, "Oh shit, talk about pressure."
Yeah.
And it was great. It went great. And I always shoot their show. And I had so much fun. The only one I regret that I didn't do was Don Rickles. He said yes to do the interview, but I said I want to shoot his show, parts of his show, right, to make it his B-roll.
Huh.
"No, use my old stuff. I don't want you shooting the show." And I'm like, "Well, then I'm not going to do it."
Right.
And I thought he called my bluff. He said, "Fine, then don't do it."
Oh.
And I didn't do it. But I wanted to do Celine Dion, but she has a deal with Canada, Air Canada, and I was with American, so she couldn't do it. But it was fun. It was all the magicians were great. Lance Burton.
Did you get Siegfried and Roy in there?
They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do
Oh.
it. I tried. They wouldn't do it. So I got to do a lot of that. That was, to me, that was fun. And one funny story. I hope you don't mind these funny stories.
No,
Please.
so
We
many
love
of them.
it.
I did a shoot on the set of Warner Brothers it was Murphy Brown. And I don't know if you know this, but on the sets in Hollywood, the bigger the job you have, the closer you get to park near the studio,
Right.
right? If you're like an executive producer, or the president or whatever, you sit. If you're not, you go all the way in the back. Okay. So I go in, I'm a New Yorker. Fuck them. I'm going where I'm going. I see a parking spot right at the gate,
Oh,
right
no.
where I had to go. So this is perfect. So I'm there, and I see a security guard running at me, and I'm like, "What did I do?" He comes up to me. He says, "You can't park here." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because this is Clint Eastwood's spot, and he'll puncture your tires. And by the way, he's behind you." So I look in the rearview mirror and I see him in his truck with a look that could kill. It wasn't smiling. It was like, "Go ahead, make my day. Go ahead, park there." So I'm like, "Okay, I'm going. I won't park there." It's a big thing. It's a,
I remember that.
Spot.
Oh my God. That
I
is
remember
great.
that story. Jeff told me that story ages ago.
Yeah.
And it was one of the
my
best
favorite
stories.
one.
And I was like,
Man.
you had Dirty Harry behind you and he didn't shoot you?
Right behind me,
know?
looking at me. "Go ahead, park there. I dare you."
You pissed off Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
That is tremendous.
That's right.
Awesome. But look, the good part about this, Jeff, is exactly what you were saying. Chris and I do this now, with a positivity and because we enjoy doing it.
Right. That's key.
And
Enjoy what you're doing.
I'm enjoying it because look, it reintroduced Chris and I because even though we know each other for a lot of years, we haven't seen each other for a lot of years.
Right.
And this pushed us because of our walk of life or whatever,
Right.
And we definitely do that, and we definitely are. We want to bring something different. The different to us is, look, yeah, COVID plays a role in our lives, right?
Right.
But throughout that, I found a lot of pluses, not minuses.
Right.
And where I found it was at home. Yeah, money's great, all that. That's all awesome.
Yeah, you can't do it for money. You have to
But
do
you
it
can't,
if you
right?
love it.
And that's what I learned. And Chris and I have these conversations all the time because I try to amp up Chris because Chris is very humbled and I'm like, dude, you could do your own stuff at some point. You did it for BBO for a long time. You could do it for yourself.
Yep.
We'll figure it out together. I'm good with operations. That I know.
Right.
I could put a good crew, but Chris is good with other things. So that's what we're doing. And the purpose of having some of you guys here specifically is because you told me your stories of not going to college. You told me those stuff, and those always resonated with me because I didn't go to college.
Right.
I wasn't good at school, but I was good at work.
Let me tell you, before I went to before I went to ABC, I was 17. I was working in Wall Street. I was on the phone. I would call Fortune 500 companies and ask them what magazines they read. Right. I was 17. And I called one company, it was an insurance company. And I said, hi, this is Jeff Kreiner. What do you read, Esquire? We're doing a survey and all that. And he said, you have a good voice on the phone. I said, thanks. So do you read Harper's? Do you read, I went right back into the speech. And he said, how much you make an hour? It's a true story. I said, it was like $2.75 an hour. He said, how would you like to make $6 an hour off the books? I said, where are you located? He said, 485 Fifth Avenue. I got on the subway at lunchtime, went to the office. This insurance company was on the 30th floor. They wanted somebody to call companies and sell insurance or get their salesman to go and try to sell insurance, life insurance. So I took that job. I quit the other one. I got that one I had 2-hour lunches. It was great. It was insurance. Now ABC comes knocking on the door and says, we're going to hire you as a desk assistant. Do you want the job? And the insurance people called my mother at home and said, we want Jeff to work with us. He won't listen to us. He wants to work for ABC. We want Jeff. We'll pay for his college to learn insurance because we'd like to make him 17. Wow. And I said, no, I want to work in television. And, by the way, they're still in business. I actually called the guy and I said, this is Jeff. I was there. I said, oh, yeah, I remember you. Yeah. What have you done? I told him what I've done, but they're still in business.
Wow.
So I could have gone insurance, So the message to this is stick to what you know best. Stick to what your heart says you want to do. Don't let anybody tell you no. Don't accept no. No doesn't exist. And go with it and take a chance. Sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't.
Right.
But you'll regret it if you don't take the chance.
Right.
And that you don't want to ever do that.
No.
That's a bad thing.
That's something definitely that we need to hear that.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten punched in the gut a lot more than I think we want to.
Right.
And obviously some of it is, look, life. You got kids, you got responsibilities, but you figure it out along the way. Stuff happens. Like, you say all these stories for you. It was in the cards, one way or another, not your cards, but you made it. It came for you.
Right.
Whether you chose it or not, somehow or other, it popped up for you at the right time.
Yeah, it wasn't handed to me. I worked
for
it.
Right, exactly. I was lucky. Some of it was handed to me because in the 16, 17 years that I was with Peter, I never had an interview after that.
Right.
Everywhere I went, I just, look, if you're not with Peter, Ray, go there.
Were you at Filmus too? You didn't go to you weren't at Filmus, were you? Before National?
No.
That's
everything. I started out at HBO and then I met Peter after that.
I hired Jennifer to help me with the shoot that I'm doing.
I love Jen.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
So just so you know, our next person that I have to, it's her.
Okay.
I want to get the women in my life that it was Lisa, it was Jennifer.
Right.
Even Mary, because they're so strong and they were good in the business, but
Jennifer was great. Well, Jennifer she's working. She's been calling clubs for me, setting up shoots when I have.
And she's so encouraging, and they always look at me. I was blessed to have them in my life.
Same here. Incredible. One of my first bosses, and she was absolutely incredible.
Make sure when you interview Jennifer, she tell you the story about coffee out the window. Just tell her that. It's a great story. It's a great story.
I'm going to write that one down.
Yeah, you got to tell her that's a great story. Well, that was you had a great team working with you. It
was family. It turned out, it turned out more like a family, which I never knew anything other than them.
Right.
But when I did go out on my own, I try to replicate that because of them. I felt I owed that to them to show them what that continued to
Well,
be.
you know, I spent a lot of money with them over the years.
Yes, I do.
A ton of money.
Yes, I do.
His retirement was CBS and NBC. All the music that was on the network
Yeah, was his.
was his. All
Was
the
his.
news, and the news promos run all the time.
Yep.
Yep.
I remember all
What
that.
about the announcers? Have you talked to any of the announcers?
Well,
Gamer, he'd be a good one.
Well, I recently, well, not recently, when I was at BBDL, one of the last actors I worked with was Tom Hare.
Tom, yes. Yes,
So,
I've worked with him too recently.
Yeah. Oh, really?
But Steve Kamer does a lot of stuff. I mean, he does the Yes Network. He does Judge Judy. He does E.T. I think he does. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an interesting story.
Right. It
And
was
he
Tom
also,
Hare.
on
Who
a
was the
dime,
other one?
he would do work for me on a dime. I mean,
Yeah.
if I needed him, he did it. It was never, I'll do it tomorrow.
Who else
That
did
does
CBS for you guys? It was besides Tom Hare. Who was?
Well, Webb died. Webb,
Yeah.
he died.
Rob.
Right.
Rob
Rob
Webb.
Webb.
Rob Webb.
The guy who
Sad.
did 48 Hours.
Oh,
He had like 9 kids. I forgot his name.
I forgot also, and I think he was at Peter's Memorial.
Yeah,
I think he was.
he did 48 Hours. He's very
My
good.
man, I got to tell you, thank you so much for doing this for
You're
me.
welcome. It's a pleasure.
Because you didn't even hesitate. I put it out. You said yes.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. It's a pleasure to do it, and I'm glad you're doing this. And both of you guys should really, you have a lot of background, a lot of friends in the business. You should really explore that and speak to them. There's a lot of
Yeah,
them there.
Chris, you heard that?
Yeah,
I heard that.
You heard that?
yeah.
So,
There's a lot of people you could talk to.
my man Jeff, I appreciate it. I'm gonna let Chris do what he always does is our final goodbyes. But thank you so much. I'm glad you're
Anytime,
happy. I'm so happy for your daughter. Your daughter looks
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah, she's great. Just
I'm
saw it
glad for
today.
your son.
Thank you.
If you ever need us, you know where to find me.
Thank you. Yes, I
And
do.
I'll drag Chris along because Chris is smarter than I am.
All right,
I'm
there you
just,
go.
No, I'd be
But,
happy to help in any way possible if you ever need it.
Excellent. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. All right, Jeff. Well, thank you again, and we'll see everybody on the next podcast.
Terrific.